This podcast is brought to you by WRFL, Radio Free Lexington. Find us online at wrfl.fm. Catch us on your FM radio while you're in Central Kentucky at 88.1 FM all the way to the left. Thank you for listening, and please be sure to subscribe.
Welcome to From the Woods, Kentucky. I'm Renee Williams, and I'm here with my co-host, Lhotka. Today in studio, we have Chad Niman. Chad is a primary forest products specialist in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources at the University of Kentucky. It's a pleasure to have you in studio today, Chad.
Thank you for having me.
We are getting ready to celebrate Forest Products and Stewardship Week, which is a part of UK Sustainability Month, which falls during the National Forest Products Week. So we are looking forward to hearing more about this event and forest products in general. But before we get started talking about forest products, tell us a little bit about your background and what you do at UK.
Well, so for my background, I grew up, my father was a home builder, so I grew up on that side of the wood products. I ended up going here to UK and got my undergraduate bachelor's degree in forestry. And with that forestry degree, I went out and I worked for a private consultant and went around the state working for private landowners. Mm-hmm. And then I worked for the military down at Fort Campbell, running their forest inventory program. And I now here at University of Kentucky, working with loggers and landowners in areas of utilization and a little bit with markets and safety.
Okay, great. So what first got you interested in forestry?
Well, that's a good question. I was a business major when I started out college, and I had just lost my parents, and so I was really reevaluating my life and trying to figure out what I really wanted to do. I ended up running into a good friend of mine from high school, and he was explaining to me the different classes that he had, the small classrooms, the fact that a lot of them take place outdoors and in the woods, and so it all sounded really fascinating to me, and so I looked into it a little bit more and ended up enrolling into the classes, and it was really helpful with those small classes and the fact that most of them are outdoors and helping me get through a pretty tough time in my life, a lot of change. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad that you joined forestry, and I'm glad that you're back here with us there. So thanks for letting us know about your background. And before we start talking about the Forest Product and Stewardship Week, we want to talk and learn a little bit about forest products in general. And so I know that Kentucky is one of the leading hardwood producers in the country. And can you talk about what a hardwood is and what species Kentucky has?
That's a good question. So hardwoods, and this could sound a little bit confusing, but hardwoods are typically your broadleaf. They're usually deciduous, but you think of them as trees with leaves. And then the softwoods would be like your pines and firs, your conifers that have needles. And so that's the big difference there between the hardwoods and the softwoods. We have a lot of oaks. We have a lot of very diverse tree species in our state. And so you've got your oaks, which are used a lot in industrial materials like railroad ties and different mats that go into industrial applications. But then you've also got hardwood flooring and cabinets. And white oak is used exclusively in bourbon barrels. They quarter saw it, and that paired with the tyloses prevent the bourbon or whiskey from leaking out of the barrels.
That's interesting.
And so you've also got your maples. You've got hard maple, which is sugar maple, and that's used a lot in like hardwood floors and basketball courts very commonly. And soft maple, which would be red maple, is used a lot in cabinets, some paint grade, but also, showing off that natural beauty of the soft maple. We've got a lot of ash, which most of our folks are probably aware of now has been killed by the emerald ash borer. This used to be used really heavily in bats, but they've switched over to using hard maple exclusively in a lot of bats out of like Louisville Slugger or other bat companies. And as most folks know, wood is used to frame a lot of residential homes, whether it be out of pine or fir. A lot of the material that's used to construct those houses is wood.
So basically what you're saying is wood is at the heart of every home, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So what are the common forest products that are made here in Kentucky?
Lumber is a very big one. We also produce a lot of barrel staves and barrels for bourbon and whiskey production. Again, a lot of those industrial applications like the railroad ties and different mat materials. But then you've also got cabinets, hardwood flooring, molding and millwork, some paper products. All of the Post-it notes in North America are actually made in Cynthiana, Kentucky, about 45 minutes north of
That's
Lexington.
interesting. We use a lot of Post-it notes. So tell us a little bit about that process. So how do you get from the tree standing out of the woods into a product?
Right, there's quite a few more steps than most folks would think. And so in Kentucky, around 80-something percent of the land is privately owned by small landowners. And so these landowners will have these trees growing on their property. They will work with a forester and a logger to have that wood logged off that property. And then that wood, once it's cut down and loaded onto trucks, it'll be hauled to a facility where it'll be cut up and utilized into different dimensions for whatever product that it'll be used into. And that from that process, it may need to be cut again. It may need to be dried. There's a lot of different variables depending upon what product it's going to go into.
That's interesting. So can you tell us about the economic contribution of wood products to Kentucky?
So in Kentucky, the wood products industry is around $14 billion in contribution, and about 60,000 people are employed in the state.
Wow.
But nationally, it's over $100 billion that it contributes to gross domestic product.
Okay. All right, so now while we were in the interview talking about forest products and Stewardship Week, we have a lot of events that are going to go on this coming week of October 22nd through the 26th. Can you kind of tell us what those are?
It's Forest Products and Stewardship Week. As you mentioned, it's going to be part of the Campus Sustainability Month. The theme this year is going to be bourbon barrels to basketball courts. We're trying to get into a lot of the student and campus interests. And so we're going to have activities going on the entire week to try to build up. So Monday, kicking things off, we're going to have the Wildcat Wagon and the Wildcat out with the Kentucky Division of Forestry and Kentucky Forest Industries Association. And they're going to be providing hot dogs and veggie dogs and information on the forest industry in the state.
And that'll actually be at our building,
That'll
right?
actually be at the Thomas Poe Cooper building. We're going to release the locations for the scavenger hunt that Monday morning. So the different locations for that will be to take a selfie of yourself with your favorite tree on campus, a wood product on campus, the reclaimed wooden doors at the 90. You could take a selfie of yourself with the Wildcat Wagon there on Monday. Another option is the social staircase at the new Student Center and the salvaged wood benches at the Student Center. There is a conference table that's in room 360 of the Gatton Business and Economics building that was made from salvaged trees around that building during the renovation. And then we also have some wood ID boards at the Thomas Poe Cooper building on the staircase. And so you would take a selfie of yourself with 4 of those 7 different locations or items. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have some prizes for the first 50 students that come and show those pictures from participating in that scavenger hunt. And that will be back at the Thomas Poe Cooper building.
Yeah, We should be set up between 10 and 2.
Between 10 and 2.
So, hey, they can come meet us.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
They can come meet us. And just to let people know that if you're not familiar with the Thomas Poe Cooper building, we're located at the corner of Rose and Huguelet. So it's right across from the new science building. So if they're not familiar with the area or the T.P. Cooper building, which is the Forestry building that we call, it's right on the corner of Rose and Huguelet.
So we'll be out on the front lawn then.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll have the wood table and salvage pin oak furniture story from the new student center. The Manor students and Dr. Terry Connors will be over at the student center, the new Gatton Student Center, between 12 and 2. They'll have a couple of tables set up over there and be talking to folks.
And that's on Tuesday.
That's
right?
on Tuesday from 12 to 2.
Okay.
And I will be on Green Talks with Zoe Gabrielson, which is on WRFL as well, at 2 p.m. And then Wednesday, we're going to have Branch and Bark, a local urban sawmill here in Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be doing a demonstration with a Lucas mill, utilizing a declining red oak that we have over in front of Ag North. And they're going to be essentially sawing that into slabs that can be storing the carbon and utilizing that into finished product.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, what exactly were they going to do with that tree? But okay.
And so then on Thursday, we're going to have Dr. Ellen Crocker over at the 90, and she's going to be giving out some samples of shiitake mushroom pasta salad.
Ooh.
And that's going to be pretty tasty.
Yeah, you can get out there and try a shiitake mushroom. Yeah.
That's right. And she'll be over there 11 to 1.
And that's at the 90, right?
That's right. And a lot of folks, they don't realize how many non-timber forest products that there are out there, the shiitake mushroom being one of those. And so she'll also be sharing some of her knowledge on shiitake cultivation. So that should be pretty exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday, we're going to wrap everything up with a talk about a cross-laminated timber project that was done out at Ashland, the Henry Clay Estate, right down the road from campus here.
Mm-hmm.
We've got one of the faculty from over there that was in on that project. He's going to be talking in Pence Hall, room 209, from 2 to 3 p.m., so that'll be over at Pence Hall.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain what cross-laminated timber is?
So essentially you would orient the boards in different directions. So you would have a horizontal board, and then you would place a board vertically, and then you would have another layer that would be horizontal on the back side.
Okay.
And so you would glue all of those together into a panel, and then those panels readily assemble together on site. And so it's actually one of the big mass timber conversations that's going on that will potentially revolutionize large buildings and increase and decrease the amount of time that it takes to assemble a large building on site by having these prefabricated panels and being able to put them all together. And so it's something that has been explored a lot in Europe as a way of using more wood and having more strength in large buildings due to the fact that it can reduce environmental impact of construction as compared to using more steel and concrete and other materials. And the fact that wood can store carbon, it seems to be something of interest going forward in our built environment.
So is it proven to actually be stronger than concrete that way?
It has been proven stronger. Due to the charring ability, it's proven to be better for fire resistance with the proper systems installed. And earthquake resistance is one that has been tested here relatively recently, and better results were shown for that even. So there's a lot of positives that they're exploring with cross-laminated timber and different mass timber utilization in our buildings.
Well, you've presented us with a lot of great information, and what would be the one or two takeaway items that you would like to leave our listeners with?
So, trees provide a lot of benefits for us both when they're living and when we utilize them in forest products. And I guess National Forest Products Week will be celebrated on campus as part of Sustainability Month. So be sure to take part in the activities and learn about how forest products impact your life and how they might potentially reduce your impact.
All right. Well, thank you, Chad, for joining us today. We appreciate it. And if you'd like more information on what you've heard today on this segment, you can visit our website at www.fromthewoodsky.org. You've been listening to From the Woods, Kentucky with co-hosts Renee and Laura. We'll be right back after this short break.
All right, so I am Laura Lhotka. I'm here with my co-host Renee Williams, and we're going to do a little section called our Extension Notes. And we have now in studio Dr. Terry Connors, and he's the Associate Extension Professor of Forest Products. And still in studio, we have Chad Niman with us. And so they're just going to kind of continue the discussion on forest products. We've been talking about that with Chad, but now we're going to just kind of expand that discussion a little bit with Dr. Connors here today. So welcome, both of you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So can you kind of explain to us why forest products are important to Kentucky?
Well, so about 35,000 people are employed by the forest products industry in the state. It generates a lot of revenue for the state as well, with a contribution right around $14 billion. So one of the largest industries in the state. But these products provide markets for landowners around the state. A majority of the land, as you all know, is privately owned, around 80%, and so these landowners can benefit from the sale of their timber into these different markets that make different products that we use in our everyday life.
A lot of people don't know that if you have $1,000 worth of lumber or logs rather that comes off your property, it ends up being turned into about $22,000 worth of product at the end when it's all finished.
Wow, no,
It's about a 22 to 1 ratio.
Because all the contributions, all the economic contribution that you get off of the value being added to each of those products as they go on.
That goes into the added value for the product, but also into people that are actually working in those industries.
Absolutely. Yeah, payroll taxes are a big part of it as well.
Okay, so in addition to some of the economic contributions of wood products to the state, what are some of the other reasons that it's important, that wood products are important?
Well, having those markets for wood products encourage landowners to maintain and manage their forests. So nearly half the state is forested.
Wow.
And we have forest industries in 110 of our 120 counties.
Okay. And what constitutes a forest industry? I mean, what kind of types of businesses are we talking about?
So it would be a wood product making company, a company that uses wood to make a product.
Okay.
And so we've got everything from lumber producers to cabinet manufacturers, flooring plants. We've got a lot of molding and millwork operations, bourbon barrel production.
So as long as they have something to do with wood, they're considered one of these industries.
Absolutely.
Okay. We had talked about too earlier before the show. It was that it was important to use paper instead of plastic. So why is that?
Well, going back to the fact that wood and trees are a renewable resource, the fact that we can grow trees after they've been harvested on that same land and keep it in forest cover, and then you look at the fact that paper, maybe not paper plates exactly, there's a recyclable element, but then you also have that biodegradable element too. And so as it goes into the landfill, your hopes are that it will reduce the impact as opposed to a styrofoam or a plastic plate that would go into the landfill and not break down.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know, we were talking earlier in the show about, bourbon barrels and that they're made out of white oak and basketball courts. And can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the properties of the wood itself on why they're, certain trees are used to make certain products? Maybe, for example, basketball courts, the woods that's used for the flooring for that.
Well, basketball courts are generally made out of maple, and partly because it's a pretty attractive wood. It's also nice and smooth. It machines well. It takes a good finish, so it works very well in basketball applications. You asked about bourbon barrels. We only use white oak for bourbon barrels, and we don't use red oak. There's a difference in the structure. It's kind of like having all the cells in the wood filled up with little tiny microscopic balloons in a piece of white oak. If you can imagine a sewer pipe full of balloons, for example, you can't walk through it. It's sort of the same thing in a very small scale with the white oak. All those little cells, those pores that fill those little tiny microscopic balloons keep water from going through, and that means it's going to be watertight, so bourbon barrels won't leak. Red oak lacks those little microscopic balloons, and they will leak like crazy.
you're looking at Kentucky, we have a lot of different industrial products. You've got railroad ties, horse fencing, barns, a lot of those applications. But then you get into things like ice cream sticks that are made down in Corbin, Kentucky, out of beech.
Mm-hmm.
We've got different veneers that are made out of Winchester, Kentucky, that will go into different furniture or even into some vehicles, for the veneer, to put on with the wood.
Mm-hmm.
Thin layer of wood, in case anybody doesn't know what a veneer is.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of
wood
flooring, a lot
Yes.
of cabinet companies. We have a lot of paper companies making different kind of paper products.
And so, what you mentioned that there's kind of some products that people may find around their home. What would you say just are something that inside your kitchen? Say, what would you find?
Well, so a lot of folks might use paper plates or paper towels, napkins. You've got
Wallpaper.
toilet paper in your restroom that you might use. Yeah, wallpaper is common in homes.
Just guess your wooden spoons that you use to,
Right.
make dinner with,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cereal
Cookbook.
boxes.
Yeah.
Cereal boxes is the one that most people don't think of being a wood product. And all the cookbooks that you're, have all those famous recipes in or written down on, you have those
Well,
around.
think about all the cabinets and the tables and the chairs. The pencil used to write things down on a calendar, it's also made from wood products.
Mm-hmm.
All kinds of things.
Okay. Earlier, you mentioned that there are two different kinds of products. There's primary and then there's secondary. And so if you could kind of describe what primary and secondary products mean in the whole forest products world, I guess.
To keep it simple, the primary products are at that first step of being utilized. So, like, you've got boards that are sawn out of logs. You've got chips that are left over that would go to make paper. Those initial products like veneer, that's like thinly sliced wood, those are all primary products. Secondary products are where you add value to those primary products and turn them into a finished product. So that would be the boards turned into a cabinet or a desk, or the veneers, applied to the top of a surface to finish out a nice piece of furniture, or a wall panel that you would have in a nice office or on a door. And then chips, being converted into paper, something like that.
Even charcoal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're talking about these industries that are in Kentucky, are they considered primary and secondary industries as well? That make products, or does one industry make both primary and secondary products? Or can it be both?
Could be both. There are some companies that start all the way from logs and turn it into lumber, and then they dry it and turn it into sellable lumber. That in some cases they do something with, but most times they're more oriented towards one set of products or another, and they'll sell it to another company. Oftentimes in Kentucky, that's going to make something that's more valuable.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we're here on the radio show WRFL, and a lot of what we do at the station is a lot of music and stuff,
Yeah.
and musical instruments are made from wood products. So tell us a little bit about some of those instruments.
Well, how about pianos, guitars, string basses, upright basses?
Yeah,
Drums, drumsticks.
my daughter plays the cello, so there you go.
Cellos, violins or fiddles, violas, oboes, clarinets. What have we left? We left all xylophones. That's what I was trying
Does
to
anyone
think
here
of
know
too.
about the dulcimer?
Dulcimer, that's a state instrument of Kentucky. I bet a lot of people don't know that. Dulcimer is a state instrument of Kentucky. It comes from the Eastern Mountains, Kentucky. The shape was originated from the Hindman area, so that's very important, especially to us.
And do they have certain woods that make dulcimers, or is it just any kind of wood that
A
can be
lot of
used?
different kind of hardwoods are used, like we have in
Okay.
Kentucky. Cherry and walnut are especially used, and some people use a lot of poplar as well.
Okay, good.
What kind of wood is actually used for instruments? Is it all different kinds, like anywhere from guitars to cellos? I mean, are there specific woods that do that?
There's a lot of different kind of woods used for different reasons. Like on a acoustic guitar, for example, a lot of times you're going to use a hard maple as a back because it throws the sound forward through the sound holes, and you'll have a softer type of wood on the soundboard itself. Usually that would be a softwood, but you could have something else that's also like a poplar, for example.
Okay, Awesome.
So it's not just for decoration. Sometimes there's a really reason for having it that way.
So the type of wood you use depends on what kind of sounds you might want to get out of it. Is that what you're saying?
In part, yeah. Absolutely.
It's very interesting.
And earlier you were mentioning about and this was earlier before the show, but kind of some new up-and-coming technology in wood products and paper. Can you tell a little bit about those?
Well,
Some of the new technologies for that?
Yes. So Nano Cellulose is essentially a really fine cellulose particle. It's been refined down. And so there is a lot of opportunity for the future of these small particles to be able to use in the future of our device screens, like your iPhone or your tablet. It'll be a stronger, more flexible screen. And there's a lot of other applications that they're still exploring, but one is food packaging, plastic food packaging. This new technology is going to allow for a more airtight seal and hopefully preserve food for longer, and the fact that it'll be biodegradable at the end is much better alternative to a lot of our plastics that, again, go into the landfill.
It's being used in small amounts now, and even things like fingernail polish, and companies are exploring uses as body armor for the military, and they think they can save about 700 pounds per car by putting nanocellulose components into a car instead of metal.
Yes.
Be a lot more nice for those cellular phones when you drop them if they were a little more flexible. Well, thank you for joining us today. We greatly appreciate both of you coming in to talk about forest products.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Hey there. If you're enjoying this podcast from WRFL Lexington, you may enjoy our live radio stream at WRFL.FM and, of course, via radio at 88.1 FM in the Central Kentucky area. We have a wide variety of programs you're sure to enjoy. Just go to WRFL.FM/schedule and see what programs appeal most to you. Thanks again for listening to this podcast from WRFL Lexington.